Set in the 1980s, Videodrome is a slow-burn science fiction horror film that blurs the line between humanity, mass media, and technology. It's about watching one's life disintegrate into a nightmare of video flesh that may or may not be real. Let's address the drone part of the title. Merriam-Webster tells us that it means arena or course. Translation, video arena. I know what you're thinking, why the fuck do I need to know that? Trust me when I say that if you're interested in watching and understanding this movie, you need every bit of help you can get. We'll get to this later in a spoiler breakdown. Videodrome is often described as being of the body horror genre. Body horror is about confronting the unsettling nuances and vulnerabilities of being an organic being. Cronenberg breathed new life into the genre with his first film, Shivers, from 1975. In Videodrome, director/writer David Cronenberg again explores body horror, this time brought on by invasive technology. It's rare where a film announces its main cast of characters in the movie, so I'm just going to let Videodrome do the work here.
Our Max Wren, controversial president of Channel 83, radio personality Nikki Brand, and media prophet Professor Brian Oblivion.
Harlan, Max's eccentric studio technician that helps Max and the station pirate broadcasts from other networks. Max Wren is president of Civic TV, a station that specializes in violent programming and softcore pornography. When Max's studio technician shows him a pirated broadcast of what appears to be a snuff series called Videodrome, Max's interest is piqued. Not only does Max contemplate the ratings boost such a show could mean to a station, but his path ahead is paved with a dark curiosity.
I'm looking for something that'll break through, something tough.
Cronenberg stated one of the inspirations of the movie is playing devil's advocate for fears surrounding television and violent media at the time, fears that violent programming changed people. Cronenberg took this one step further and had programming in Videodrome physically change people. At least that's what the film appears to be implying is happening. The description of the movie on the studio page reads, Videodrome is one of writer/director David Cronenberg's most original and provocative works, fusing social commentary with shocking elements of sex and violence. It's regarded as one of the most influential and mind-bending science fiction films of the 1980s. Did this movie accomplish these goals? Firstly, I haven't seen any of Cronenberg's other films, so I can't say how it compares to the rest of his work. However, on all the other points, that's a resounding yes. In the movie, Dr. Oblivion states, "Soon all of us will have special names."
Soon all of us will have special names.
That is pretty prophetic considering that most people create a unique special name to use online today. He also states, whatever appears on the television screen emerges as raw experience for those who watch it. Therefore, television is reality, and reality is less than television. Television can be viewed as a proxy for whatever technology influences us in substantive ways for better or worse. If you're watching this, you've let technology at least inform your view of reality somewhat through video. How much of our perception of reality is informed through means such as this? What if the media in question changed you, and if so, by how much? These are but few of the questions this movie asks. Not only does Videodrome stand out among its peers in the 80s as an intriguing mindfuck, it's still relevant today. I didn't discover Videodrome until the late 2010s, and I saw plenty of 80s movies before that point. It definitely is one of the most, if not the most mind-bending films I've seen from that era. However, as we're going to see in a moment, Videodrome has not reached as far and wide as some of its contemporaries. Despite the film featuring some very out there scenarios, the script and the acting are entirely believable. Deborah Harrah's acting as Nikki Brand does come across as a bit stiff at times, but this may be intentional as her acting in some deleted scenes shows a much more dynamic and competent range. James Woods' performance as Max Wren is believable, especially in the face of such strange circumstances his character faces. With the exception of one decision, that I'll cover in a spoiler breakdown, trust me, I didn't once question Wren's journey through the entire film. The movie does a convincing job at establishing a very specific character that would interact in Videodrome the way Max does. Each and every actor's performance goes a long way of elevating Videodrome to the heights most movies aim to achieve. That the movie is a window into another reality, another timeline, another universe. The screen is just a viewing glass to these strange and faraway places. Videodrome is such a window, a retina into the mind's eye of the people that live in this world. Andy Warhol called Videodrome the Clockwork Orange of the 1980s. IMDb has Videodrome rated 7.2 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes 80 out of 100, and Metacritic 50 out of 100. Since the movie's release has grossed a little over $2 million, with about $1 million of that being the opening weekend. That means in the 4 decades since Videodrome's release, it has taken that long to make what it made on its opening weekend. Videodrome has also made it on a few greatest horror movies of all time lists. On Parade.com, it made 39 out of 151, and IGN it ranked 41 out of 100. It still flies under the radar of a lot of people, and for that reason, I would rate Videodrome somewhere between a cult classic and an undiscovered gem made out of nightmares, sex, and cathode ray tubes. Videodrome is a dark, dense, weird, and unsettling movie. For this reason, I don't think the average viewer would enjoy this. It takes a lot of effort to penetrate its narrative and all but demand repeated viewings to peel back. This is not a film for the pumpkin spice, glasses half full people you know. The moment you suggest to them that they watch this film is the last time they ever ask you for a film suggestion. However, if you're the type of person that likes slow burn, twisted, horror, cerebral thrillers, this movie is definitely for you. There's implied commentary about the overlap between humanity and technology that is relevant today as it was back then, albeit even more so. As discussed in my spoiler breakdown in detail, this movie is quite the challenge to sort out if you're looking for the objective truth of the film's events. If unraveling a movie's truth is your thing, this movie is a type that keeps on delivering. A film that comes to mind similar to Videodrome is Memento, for that film has a narrative structure that challenges the viewer to investigate to ascertain the truth of certain events. It also invokes thoughts of The Matrix for its layered reality approach to storytelling. So in short, watch this film if you're into dense, dark, bleak, fucked up shit. Avoid it if you're not. In the event that you missed this spoiler breakdown warning, just be advised, just be warned, we are about to fully enter spoiler territory for Videodrome. So if you don't want the movie's events to be spoiled, now is the time to shut off the video, because I'm about to really get into this movie, breaking it down, spoilers included. I hate when movies are spoiled for me, so that's why I'm including this warning. So Videodrome, while I don't think it's for everyone, it really was my type of movie. It is dark, it's disturbing, it's twisted, it's cerebral. Even though I hate puzzles in real life and in video games, when a movie has an interesting narrative that isn't very obvious and it requires some investigation to figure out, or in this case a lot of investigation, I love puzzles like that, and Videodrome definitely delivers. Disclaimer, right? Everything in Videodrome could be a hallucination. I mean, if you even take it outside of Videodrome, then every movie could be a hallucination. In fact, reality, our perception of reality, can be a hallucination. So just to avoid, well, have you considered that might be a hallucination too? Yes, I have. I've decided to draw a line in the sand to say that yes, everything can be a hallucination in this movie, but I am taking the stance that there are some things in this movie that are a pure hallucination and there are some things that aren't. So when I watch movies, I can't help but pick apart the plot. Hey, there's a plot hole here, there's a plot hole there. I don't really try to do it. It's just that when a movie presents them, I tend to focus on them, and it kind of takes me out of the movie. I'm very happy to say that Videodrome does not really have any plot holes. However, as mentioned in the spoiler-free breakdown, there is one nitpick I have with Max Wren specifically, and it's this scene here. I call it the gun stomach scene. Like, I understand, like, Max, at this point, his perception of reality is being affected by Videodrome. I'm trying to place myself in his situation, and I see what appears to be like a slit, an organic slit open up in my stomach. I'm gonna have a lot of questions. I'm gonna have a lot of reactions to that. But what I'm not gonna do is, oh, I'm curious about this slit that just opened up in my stomach, so let me immediately put my gun in it. I just don't understand. If the gun needed to be inside his body for him to pull it out later, okay, I get that, but I think there could have been more plausible ways for this to happen. But like, oh, hey, I just saw an orifice open up on my body that's never been there before. I'm gonna immediately investigate by putting a gun inside it, and oops, it's gone. That's a nitpick. It's not really a plot hole, because as I said before, the movie did a good job establishing Max is like a character with dark and repressed desires. So if you get all Freudian about it, I'm sure you could break down, like, you know, Max is just exploring his perverse desires here, so maybe it doesn't make sense to someone that doesn't have those perverse desires, but for me, I was like, what in the fuck? In the spoiler-free breakdown that preceded this part, I mentioned that drome means course or arena. I wasn't fucking with you saying that, yes, you're gonna need to know that, because in this movie, Videodrome is one defined as a video arena.
The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena, the Videodrome.
It's also defined as violent torture snuff show. It's also defined as a brain cancer.
I believe that the growth in my head, this head, this one, right here, I think that it is not really a tumor.
And it's also defined as a type of signal that causes brain cancer.
I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal.
Well, I'm going to assume that it's fucking all of them. It's all of them. As I was preparing this video, I'm trying to dissect what really happened, especially for his spoiler breakdown portion, I was kind of stuck. However, I came across a deleted scene where Barry Convex, one of the film's antagonists, he actually explains what Videodrome is, or its origins, in a lot greater detail than what's explained in this movie. So I'm just gonna let that scene play, and then once it's done, we're gonna get back to me breaking this down. All right, so without further ado.
I started my career as a lens grinder, and I'm a pretty straightforward kind of guy, and I suddenly find myself dealing with things, you know, funny things.
Must be hard, Barry.
We were doing some very, very sophisticated zero-light weapon scopes for military application. Developed something called an image accumulator that created images where the physics book said no images could exist. You know, the damnedest thing happened to some of the men who were testing it in the field.
They got brain cancer.
Now that's a hell of a thing to say. Oh, the damn negative thing. You got a strange sense of humor.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty funny.
When placed under simulated combat conditions, the men in the field began to hallucinate. Images began to read out on their viewers. Images of things that weren't really there.
No kidding.
Took us quite a while to figure out that the boys were starting to project their own images through the optical accumulator. Images that came directly from their brains and ended up exciting the Vidicon mosaic of their viewers like an electron gun. Video hallucinations, Max, that we have recorded on tape.
I'd love to see them.
Classified, I'm afraid. That was Army research. We don't control it. But what we would like to control, Max, is you.
Terrific idea. I need a sense.
Let's compare all the details we just got about the origins of the Videodrome technology versus what actually is explained in the official release of the movie.
I'm Barry Convex, Chief of Special Programs, and I'd like to invite you into the world of spectacular optical. An enthusiastic global corporate citizen. We make inexpensive glasses for the Third World and missile guidance systems for NATO. We also make Videodrome, Max.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a difference, right? There's a little bit more context. I'm just gonna assume, unless the movie states differently, that even though what's shown in the deleted scene and what's shown in the movie, that there are two different timelines that where everything else is the same except what's stated in each scene. So that would imply that in the main movie that Barry started off as a craftsman, and then the military, in their pursuit of developing technology that could see in absolutely no light, zero light situations, that's where Barry came into play because they wanted his expertise on making lenses and whatnot. It was really interesting to see that the origins of the Videodrome technology has to do with the military trying to peer into the darkness where nothing can be seen. And that brings us to Bianca Oblivion, the daughter of Dr. Oblivion, who we've seen only on TV up until this point. Let's address that very unusual last name, Oblivion. Initially, I did not really know what to think of that name, except maybe the director, David Cronenberg, was attempting to be edgy. However, once I discovered that deleted scene that points out that Videodrome's origins lay in trying to peer into the darkness, there's at least a symbolic connection between Oblivion and the darkness. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar conceptually. Bianca Oblivion, despite really not being featured in the film all that much, she remains my favorite character. The actress that plays her, Sonja Smits, really kills the role. Perhaps her not being featured in the movie that much lends to her mystery and her performance as the character. Whatever it is, I really love this character. Earlier in the movie, it appears that Barry Convex inserts a Betamax tape into Max, and from that point, Max goes on and assassinates his associates so Barry Convex and his associates can take over Channel 83. However, during that scene where Barry Convex inserts that tape, that could be brushed off as a hallucination. We're going to come back to that later, but for the sake of argument, it could be. However, when he goes to assassinate Bianca Oblivion on the behalf of Barry Convex and the programming he inserted into Max, she says this line right here.
It's always painful to remove the cassette, to change the program. But now that we have,
trying to solve the mystery of this movie, that line actually carries a lot of weight. Max's hallucinations, by and large, have taken the form of video flesh or something sexual, etc. He hasn't had any kind of purely auditory hallucinations. That would mean when she says it's always painful to remove the cassette, that yes, earlier when Barry appeared to insert tape into Max, he actually did. Not only that, when she says it's always painful to remove the cassette, that implies this has happened before at least one time in the past, and Bianca Oblivion has access to the same technology that Barry Convex and his associates also have access to, that she could also make Videodrome signals and also reprogram people. Alright, so pretty much everything I've explained in this spoiler breakdown has been leading up to the scene we're about to analyze. It is a scene where a Max that has been reprogrammed by Bianca goes and sees his former coworker Harlan, his eccentric technician I mentioned during the spoiler-free review. I believe that this scene has the most evidence at saying one way or another if the fucked up shit we see during this movie is real or not. First, we see Max show up at Harlan's workplace, right? Nothing crazy here, nothing to really dissect other than he's waiting for Harlan to show up. Max walks into the store. The thing I do want to point out, that there appears to be a cop sitting here reading the newspaper. That may or may not come to play depending on your disposition on what is actually happening in this scene, okay? So then Max walks into the back of the store. He walks past Harlan and looks into the back room. If what we're going to dissect here is a hallucination, then Max seeing this back room, it does give weight towards it being a hallucination. But I don't think that's what happened here. So Max walks back to Harlan, and then they have a little exchange, and eventually Harlan tries to insert another cassette into Max, right? Now, when he pulls out the cassette, it's a bloody, meaty Betamax tape. Now, let's just take a little pause here, right? If this was literally a bloody, meaty Betamax tape, I think Harlan's coworkers would say something to Harlan along the lines of, "Are you hurt? Are you bleeding? Are you okay? What's that smell?" Etc., etc. What this means to me is that It's very likely that Harlan pulled out a cassette, but I do not think it's a bloody, meaty cassette tape. I think Max is hallucinating that it's a bloody, meaty cassette tape. So he inserts the tape into Max. Then Max looks to Harlan and basically turns Harlan's hand into a hand grenade. Basically, Harlan's about to get punned to death right here. Then Harlan, in shock and with a bloody stump, he backs up through the store, okay? Now, right here, we see someone react in horror and flee from Harlan backing through the store with a bloody stump. Now, if you believe that this is hallucination, okay, it's a hallucination. That's an argument to be made. But if Max is not hallucinating that woman, which he very well might be, because remember, he looked in the back of the store earlier, but if he's not hallucinating this woman, this unknown woman, then she's actually reacting to Harlan's situation. Now, put yourself in her shoes. You're at this glasses store, you're doing some backroom stuff, maybe taping up boxes, doing inventory, and you see someone just like, walking backwards through the store, yelling at their hands. Are you gonna flee in terror? Are you gonna scream in terror? No, probably not. You're probably like, what the fuck's wrong with that person? But are you gonna do something? Are you gonna react in a fearful way if that same person has a bloody fucking stump for a hand? It doesn't matter if it's a hand grenade or what. That's a reason to back away in terror, in my opinion. So because of that, if we do assume that this woman is not a hallucination of Max's making, that would heavily imply that Harlan, at the very least, at the minimum, was injured or mauled in some way by Max. So then Harlan backs up against a wall. They have a little exchange, and then Harlan explodes. Or at least, if we break it down scene by scene here, Harlan has a hand grenade for a hand. It's ticking down, getting ready to explode. Then Harlan just disappears, and then there's a hole in the wall. Whether Harlan actually disappears here, I have two broad takes on this. One, the first take is that they ran out of budget, right? The director, the producers, etc. They just ran out of money and they couldn't afford to have all this gore everywhere, because it's been shown up until this point in the movie and even afterwards, the movie is not afraid of showing gore and violence. Another take is that whatever Max did to Harlan, he just disappears and he's simultaneously accompanied by concussive force enough to blow this hole in the wall. Whatever the case, Harlan's fucking gone, and it results in a hole in the wall. Now Max walks through this hole in the wall, and as we see and hear here in this scene, a little girl reacts to the explosion. Listen carefully.
Tracy, come back here. Stay with Mom. I want to see it. Don't you go near them. Mom, come on. Come on, we're going home. Let's just
Now, why would she react to an explosion if it wasn't there? One explanation is Max is hallucinating these people walking down the street, or another explanation is it happened, right? It's up to you to decide what really happened, but I believe, based on all the evidence I have laid out up until this point, that yes, a hole was blown in the wall and Max walks up the street. Max did not actually walk through a hole in the wall. That would mean he's still hallucinating, and he circled out of the store, came back around, and then walked up the street. I mean, that could have happened, but like I said, we have at least two witnesses to what Max has been perceiving as a hallucination up until this point. We have the woman in the store, and we have the girl running down the street. With that said, I do feel that this is the strongest case for Videodrome not only inducing brain cancer, in fact, that brain cancer bestows at least some people, at least in Max's case, at least some kind of metanatural ability, whether that is just to change his own body or that of others, or some low-level reality warping. Now, trying to wrap all this up, The reason I wanted to focus on just a few scenes in the movie instead of every single hallucination event is because if we can establish that some of the craziest stuff happened, then that leaves it up to you, the viewer, to decide, hey, did the other events happen as well if one of the craziest ones did. But yeah, I was actually aiming for this video to be around 10 minutes long. I definitely failed at that goal. Hopefully I get better as I continue, but hopefully this video brought you some value, some entertainment, some smiles, some whatever. And until next time, peace out.